In 1991, Felix was convicted of stabbing somebody with a margarita glass in a bar fight.
After the stabbing, Felix Sater is arrested and put behind bars. He seems to be following in his father's criminal footsteps.
And then he becomes involved in financial fraud, and he has a $40 million scheme in pumping penny stocks.
Fraud and deception. Sater proves to be good at it. He works together with a group of mafia members, artificially driving up the value of shares by providing false information. The FBI traces him, but Sater flees to Russia. When he returns to New York, he still stands trial. But then, something strange happens.
He is basically on the verge of pleading guilty to those offenses, but he does a deal.
Sater closes a deal. He becomes an FBI informant. He avoids punishment by turning on his accomplices. Supposedly, this has landed dozens of mafia members behind bars. And that's not all. Sater is also said to have helped American intelligence services.
Some say that he went back to the former Soviet Union and at that point provided some information about Stinger missiles that were being sold to the Afghan Taliban.
In exchange for the information, Sater stays out of jail. In fact, the American government covers up the court transcripts about the fraud. Shortly thereafter, Sater reappears in the real estate company of Bayrock. In an interview with a Russian magazine, he says, "I became a managing director of Bayrock. We had an office at Trump Tower, one floor below Trump's." As the court transcripts about Sater's fraud are sealed, he can simply move on to business as usual. Banks and investors in Bayrock do not find out anything about his criminal past.
When you are running a business secretly controlled by Russian mafia, you got a whole lot of problems. Not a lot of banks are going to want to lend to a business run by the Russian mafia. So your number one objective is going to be cover it up.
Oberlander says that by keeping Sater's past a secret, Bayrock is committing a felony.
It isn't legal to run a business where you hide the fact that the biggest owner, or one of the biggest owners, is a convicted mobster. The maximum jail term would be 30 years. So you're in really serious trouble.
We are in possession of internal Bayrock emails from 2007. They show that the company itself is indeed aware of Sater's crimes. For example, the legal counsel writes about the risk that Felix's past will be uncovered. Furthermore, he wants Sater's name removed from the documents. Felix Sater goes far to keep his secret. A Bayrock employee tells the lawyer Oberlander that he is being threatened by Sater.
He said, "You know how many times Sater threatened to kill me? He threatened to stab me in the throat if I ever talked. He threatened people all over the place at Bayrock if they ever talked."
Oberlander tells us that he himself is being threatened by one of Sater's associates as well.
The threat said, "If you don't drop the case now, but you'll regret it."
An investor in a Bayrock project accuses the company of embezzlement. He swears that Sater has threatened to administer electrical shocks to his genitalia, to cut off his legs, and to leave his dead body in the trunk of his car. Of course, we are anxious to know how Felix Sater himself looks back on his past. We go to Port Washington, an hour's drive from New York. We have a couple of addresses where we might find Sater.
I'm looking for Felix Sater. Do you know him?
Anything would be, no, I don't know. Anything would be that way.
That way?
Yeah, the numbers go down
190?
that way, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
107, 109.
It's got to be down that way a little
Okay,
bit.
it has to be that side of the street then.
On that side, right.
Okay.
Because that's the odd side.
Okay, thank you.
This is supposed to be one of Sater's business addresses, but the place looks closed. It's been a long time since the mailbox was last emptied. Back in New York, we do find an address for Bayrock. The company is no longer active, but is still registered to the former legal counsel, a Mr. Julius Schwartz.
Hi there, sir. I'm looking for Mr. Julius Schwartz. Okay, thanks. Schwartz? Julius Schwartz?
I'm pretty sure he's not here. He has people upstairs. Let me just call this girl.
But Schwartz is not in, and no one is willing to talk to us. Meanwhile, hearings are being conducted in Congress about the Russian interference in the presidential elections. The director of the FBI is making a statement. The congressmen want to know if he has information about Felix Sater.
Director, are you aware of Felix Sater, a former Soviet official and advisor to the Trump Organization?
I'm not going to comment on that.
And Director, outside of Mr. Sater's relationship with the Trump Organization, are you aware that the FBI knew of Mr. Sater because of a $40 million stock fraud case that was prosecuted by the federal government?
Same answer.
What did Donald Trump know about Felix Sater's crimes and his position at Bayrock? If Trump has kept Sater's criminal past a secret, he is an accessory to fraud and deception, says Oberlander.
If I can show that Donald Trump at some point knew the truth about the crimes at Bayrock, or even some of them, and kept on helping Bayrock's businesses while knowing that it has been engaged and is continuing to engage in crime, that's it. Goodbye and good luck.
So, if Trump knew about the shady background of his business partners, that could have huge consequences. What information did Trump have anyway? In 2007, the New York Times publishes an article on Sater and his crimes. So from then on, Donald Trump has to have been aware of them.
And he said, I'm going to tell you this much. I guarantee you I'm going to get to the bottom of this really fast. Really fast.
Trump promises to get to the bottom of the whole story of Sater and Bayrock. A meeting is called. We discover that the meeting is attended by the Bayrock management, as well as virtually the entire Trump family.
They were all coming. Trump Jr., Eric, Ivanka, every lawyer on the... They were all coming.
But Donald Trump does not seem to intend to cut the ties to Bayrock. In fact, we can read that he uses the situation to demand more money for himself. Sater emails that Trump is happy with him. But in his external communications, Donald Trump acts as if he hardly knows anything of Sater's history, as becomes clear during a BBC interview.
Why didn't you go to Felix Sater and say, you're connected with the mafia, you're fired?
Well, first of all, we were not the developer there. That was a licensing deal.
But your name was on it.
A very simple licensing deal.
But your name's on it, Mr. Trump.
Excuse me, but I don't know. You're telling me things that I don't even know about.
He was connected with the mafia.
Again, John, maybe you're thick, but when you have a signed contract, you can't, in this country, just break it. And by the way, John, I hate to do this, but I do have that big group of people waiting, so I have to...
Okay, no, hold on. One last question, please, sir.
I have to leave. Thank you.
A few months later, Trump is again confronted with Sater. He has to give a statement under oath in a lawsuit about a real estate project.
About how many times have you conversed with Mr. Sater?
Over the years?
Over the years, if you could estimate.
Not many.
Not many.
If he were sitting in the room right now, I really wouldn't know what he looked like.
Okay.
This time, Trump says he wouldn't even recognize Sater if he bumped into him in the street. That's strange, because after leaving Bayrock, Sater becomes one of Trump's advisors. He is given a business card from Trump's company, a telephone number, and an office close to that of Trump.